Right now, across every corner of America, an empire is crumbling. Drive-thrus that used to have lines wrapped around the block, ghost towns. Over 3,000 restaurants have shut down in the last year alone. We're not talking about some random mom-and-pop shops. We're talking about the giants, the brands you grew up with, the places that promised you could always get a cheap meal. That promise? It's been shattered. And what's happening right now is something America hasn't seen in 50 years. This is the story of how fast food, the one thing we thought would always be there, is vanishing before our eyes. Let me paint you a picture of America in 2026. You drive down Main Street. See that empty parking lot? That used to be TGI Fridays. See that boarded-up building with the faded sign? That was Hooters. And that strip mall with the 4 lease banners flapping in the wind? 3 different fast food chains died there in 6 months. This isn't happening in one city, it's everywhere. From the coasts to the heartland, the restaurants that fed America for decades are dropping like dominoes. You know that feeling when you're craving Taco Bell at midnight and you pull up to find nothing? Just an empty building with the drive-thru menu still glowing like a ghost? Yeah. That's becoming normal. The numbers are insane. We're talking about tens of thousands of jobs gone. Billions in losses. Communities losing their gathering places. These aren't small businesses struggling to compete. These are massive corporations with billions in revenue, decades of history, and marketing budgets that could fund small countries, and they're still failing. So what the hell is going on? Well, I'm about to take you on a journey through 10 of the biggest collapses in fast food history. Each one tells a piece of the story. Each one reveals something darker about where America is headed. And I'm warning you now, by the end of this video, you're going to see your favorite restaurants in a completely different light. Let's start with number 10, and trust me, it only gets worse from here. Okay, let's talk about Hooters. Yeah, that Hooters. Orange shorts, buffalo wings, and controversy that could fuel 1,000 think pieces. Love it or hate it, you can't deny Hooters was iconic. At its peak, $1.2 billion in revenue. But in June 2025, Hooters filed for bankruptcy. 150 locations shut down. Nearly half of all their restaurants in America just vanished. 6,000 workers out on the street. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Good riddance. That concept was outdated anyway. And you know what? You might be right about the concept. But the collapse of Hooters tells us something way bigger than just one problematic restaurant chain. Wings that used to cost $12, now they're $16. Beer pitcher, $9. That's not so bad, you say. But wait, the average American is drowning in debt right now. Credit card debt hit $1.4 trillion. Rents are up 25%. Groceries up 21%. And you're trying to justify spending $16 on wings? Here's where it gets real. Sales in the entire sports bar category dropped 17% in one quarter. People aren't just avoiding Hooters, they're avoiding everything like it. The money's gone. Hooters tried to adapt. They launched Hoots Wings, smaller locations without the, well, you know. The whole thing failed. Because it wasn't about the concept, it was about the economics. Average sales per location fell from $1.7 million to under $1 million. Staff turnover hit 90% annually because nobody wants to work for tips when customers stop showing up. Franchise owners are buried under $180 million in debt. Florida, Texas, Georgia, the places where Hooters was basically a religion, are shutting down left and right. But here's what really matters. Google searches for Hooters near me dropped 58% since 2020. People aren't even looking anymore. In a world where escape used to happen at sports bars, now it happens on your phone, on your couch, for free. Hooters isn't losing to another restaurant. It's losing to Netflix and TikTok, and that's a fight no amount of buffalo wings can win. Chipotle, the untouchable one. The golden child of fast casual dining. The place that turned a burrito into a lifestyle. For years, experts said Chipotle was recession-proof. They said it was the future. Well, the future just hit a wall. For the first time in over a decade, U.S. same-store sales dropped. Down 4.5%. Customer traffic in cities, down 12%. The average check is now $14.80. That's not that bad, you say? Except it's risen 35% faster than inflation. You know what that means? Chipotle isn't just raising prices because costs went up. They're raising prices because they're desperate. 75 locations closed in 2025. A burrito bowl that cost $8.50 now costs over $12. Add guac? You're at 16. For a family of four, that's a $64 meal. The same price as a week's worth of groceries. Let that sink in. The company that built its entire brand on being the affordable, healthy option just priced out the people who made it successful. And the costs keep rising. Minimum wage in California and New York, $16 to $18 an hour. Avocados and proteins, up 40%. Profit margins collapsed from 22% to 14% in 2 years. Even delivery, which was supposed to save them, is bleeding money. Third-party apps take 30% of every order. 30%. Chipotle's whole brand was built on being ethical. Sustainability, responsibly sourced. Food with integrity. And you know what Americans are thinking right now? I don't care about integrity, I care about feeding my kids. When you're drowning in student loan debt and rent takes half your paycheck, ethical sourcing sounds like rich people problems. Chipotle became a symbol of upward mobility, the place where ambitious young professionals could grab a healthy lunch and feel good about themselves. But in 2025, those young professionals were skipping lunch altogether because they can't afford it. The burrito bowl that used to represent success, now it tastes like inflation. Remember TGI Fridays? Of course you do. That place was everywhere. The walls covered in random junk from the 1950s, the servers wearing 17 pieces of flair, happy hour that actually made you happy because you could afford it. Fridays was the spot. First dates, office parties, that awkward family dinner where nobody talks about politics. Well, say goodbye to all that, because in 2025, TGI Fridays just became a graveyard. 180 locations gone, disappeared in 4 months. 7,000 people lost their jobs, not because they did anything wrong, not because the food was bad, but because nobody can afford to eat there anymore. Here's the gut punch. A burger that cost you $9.99 a few years ago, now it's $15.49. Wait, you're thinking, that's just inflation, right? Wrong. This is desperation. This is a company watching its customers vanish and frantically jacking up prices to survive. And guess what happens when you do that? More customers disappear. Sales down 22% since 2019. Revenue per restaurant, under $1.4 million. That's catastrophically low for a chain this size. Fridays used to represent something beautiful. It was affordable celebration. Birthdays on a budget. Promotions that deserved a drink but not a fancy steakhouse. It was where regular people could feel special without breaking the bank. And now? It's a symbol of something darker, the death of affordable joy. Because here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. The middle class that built TGI Fridays, it's disappearing. The average American went from eating out 5.3 times per month in 2019 to just 2.7 times in 2025. That's half, cut in half. When people can barely afford groceries, sitting down at a restaurant feels like an insane luxury. And Fridays is learning that lesson the hard way. 30 franchise owners have filed for bankruptcy or debt restructuring. The famous happy hour? Now it's just sad hour. This isn't just a restaurant dying, it's a lifestyle dying. It's a promise being broken. And Fridays is only the beginning. Taco Bell, the champion of broke college kids everywhere. The hero of 2 a.m. munchies. The place that asked one simple question: why pay more when you can eat weird food from a drive-thru at midnight for $3? Well, I've got bad news. That Taco Bell? It's dying. 400 locations closed in 2025. Same-store sales down 6.2%. Foot traffic in major cities down 14%. But Taco Bell is everywhere, you say. Not anymore. Taco Bell built an empire on being cheap, like aggressively cheap. That was the whole point. A Crunchwrap Supreme used to be $3.49. Guess what it costs now? $6.29. You might be thinking, so what? Still cheaper than other places. But you're missing the point. 64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. When your budget is that tight, the difference between $3.49 and $6.29 also is massive. That's the difference between eating out and buying frozen burritos at the grocery store. And guess what Americans are choosing? The grocery store. Because at the end of the day, Taco Bell was never really about the food. It was about the price. It was the last affordable option. But now, it's not affordable anymore. Late-night sales, the bread and butter of Taco Bell, are down 19%. Delivery orders, down 30%. Gas prices are too high. Delivery fees are ridiculous. And that $6 burrito just became a $13 transaction after taxes, fees, umbises, and tips. Hard pass. Franchise owners are getting crushed. Kitchen wages over $7 an hour. Utility bills through the roof. Operating margins collapsed from 22% to 13% in 2 years. Taco Bell represented something sacred in American culture. It was the great equalizer. Rich kid, poor kid, didn't matter. Everyone ended up at Taco Bell at some point. It was the $5 meal that didn't feel like settling. It felt like a choice. And now that choice is being ripped away. When Taco Bell becomes a luxury, something is fundamentally broken in America. And we're only at number 8? All right, let's switch gears. KFC. The Colonel, the Red Bucket, the taste of Sunday dinner at Grandma's house. For generations, KFC was comfort. It was tradition. It was the food that made everything okay. Well, everything is not okay. 400 locations closed since January. That's 10% of their entire U.S. presence gone. Same-store sales down 5.3%, the worst decline in 15 years. Here's what's happening. The people KFC was built for can't afford it anymore. A combo meal that cost $7.99 in 2019, now it's $13.49. A 12-piece family bucket, over $32 in most states. That's a 68% price increase in 6 years. And wages, basically flat. The average American household now spends 11.3% of disposable income on food. That's the highest since 1989. When there's nothing left after rent and gas, fried chicken stops being dinner and starts being a fantasy. But the business side is just as brutal. Cooking oil up 43%, chicken up 31%, electricity up 22%, labor costs over $16 an hour in 22 states. Franchise owners are drowning in debt. Over 60 have filed for restructuring just to survive. And here's the identity crisis. KFC is stuck in no man's land. Too expensive for people who need cheap food. Not trendy enough for people who can afford it. They tried to modernize. Beyond fried chicken. Self-service kiosks, digital ordering, all of it failed. Because you can't fix a broken business model with technology. KFC's collapse is deeply symbolic. This was the working-class brand, the food that blue-collar America relied on. And now it's pricing out the very people who made it successful. Families who used to gather around a bucket for Sunday dinner now drive past without even slowing down. Because that bucket of comfort food, it's become another reminder that nothing is affordable anymore. The Colonel's empire is crumbling, and with it, a piece of American culture is dying too. Sweetgreen. If you don't know Sweetgreen, imagine a salad, but make it fancy. And expensive, and covered in words like organic, sustainable, and locally sourced. This was supposed to be the future of food. Clean, ethical, Instagram-worthy. Millennials and Gen Z were obsessed. But in 2025, Sweetgreen was collapsing. 40 locations closed since January. Same-store sales down 7.2%. Stock price? It went from $52 at IPO to under $10. Ouch! Here's the problem. Sweetgreen was selling a dream. The dream that eating healthy was accessible. That you deserved that $12 salad because you're worth it. Except now that salad costs $17. And with a drink, you're pushing $20 for a salad. Let me put this in perspective. The median American worker's paycheck buys 20% less food than it did in 2020. When you're choosing between rent and groceries, a $17 salad isn't self-care, it's insanity. Delivery orders down 28%, foot traffic down 18%. Employee turnover at 92% because nobody wants to work at a place where they can't afford to eat the food they're serving. But here's the real story. Sweetgreen is a mirror. It reflects America's growing inequality. In a country where 42 million people rely on food assistance, Sweetgreen became a symbol of everything wrong with wellness culture. It went from aspiration to accusation. Oh, you care about your health? Must be nice to be rich. The company spent 1.2 million per location building these beautiful stores. They invested in robot kitchens to cut costs. They did everything right from a business perspective. But they forgot one tiny detail. Their customers are broke. Sweetgreen's collapse isn't about salads. It's about the death of the American middle class. When eating healthy becomes a luxury only the wealthy can afford, we've lost the plot. Burger King. Have it your way. Remember when that meant something? When it represented choice and freedom and America itself? Well, in 2025, that slogan became a cruel joke, because now it's, have it your way, if you can afford it. 700 locations gone, 10,000 jobs eliminated. Sales down 8.4%. Burger King is in freefall. And the crazy part? They used to be number 2 behind McDonald's, untouchable. Now they're at risk of falling out of the top 5 entirely. A Whopper combo cost $7.99 4 years ago. Now, $12.59. And that promoted $5 your way meal. It's not really $5 when you factor in taxes and the fact that it barely counts as a meal. Customers figured that out real fast. Debt levels are catastrophic. Over $11 billion in corporate obligations. Franchise owners operating at 5% margins. Half of what they need to break even. Utilities up 24%. Wages up 19%. Beef up 30%. They spent $400 million on the Dawson Reclaim the Flame campaign to renovate old stores. And you know what happened? Smaller franchises went bankrupt from the dead, and traffic still didn't improve. Social media sentiment? Down 45%. Positive mentions collapsing. Major cities like Detroit, St. Louis, Cleveland completely abandoned. But here's the cultural devastation. In the 1980s, Burger King represented rebellion. It was the cool alternative to McDonald's. Now, it represents corporate exhaustion and broken promises. Those shuttered drive-thrus along the highway aren't just buildings. They're symbols of an America where even the most basic promise, affordable food, has been shattered. When the Whopper becomes a luxury item, the entire foundation of fast food collapses. Pizza Hut, the red roof, Friday night. Your parents saying Pizza Hut or Domino's, and the whole family piling into the car. That was America. But in 2026, that America is disappearing. 500 locations shut down in 2025 alone. The national store count is under 5,200, the lowest in 40 years. Same-store sales, down 6.8%. Franchise bankruptcies, tripled. A large pizza used to cost $11. Now it's $17.49. Add delivery fees, tips, and taxes, you're at $30, easily. For one pizza. In an economy where credit card debt just passed $1.3 trillion, spending $30 on pizza feels insane. So families just stopped. Pizza night disappeared from the calendar. Behind the scenes, franchise owners are bleeding cash. Delivery apps take 28% of every order. Cheese prices up 40%. Those iconic red roof buildings, they cost millions to maintain. And most of them are sitting empty now, frozen in time from an era that's never coming back. Pizza Hut tried to adapt. They went heavy on digital ordering. They partnered with delivery apps. Too little, too late. Domino's crushed them on technology. Smaller chains undercut them on price. And the middle-class families who used to be their customer base, they're broke. By 2026, Pizza Hut plans to convert 1,000 dine-in locations to carry-out only or ghost kitchens. You know what that means? They're giving up. No more booths. No more salad bars. No more Book It. Programs where kids earned free pizza for reading. Just ghost kitchens in industrial parks pumping out overpriced pizza for apps. The red roof that used to glow with warmth and laughter is now just another abandoned building on the highway. When even pizza becomes unaffordable, you know something is deeply wrong. Wendy's. Square patties, fresh beef, real value. That was the promise. Honest food at honest prices. But honesty doesn't pay the bills anymore. 450 locations closed in 2025. Same-store sales down 6.9%, the worst in company history. Franchise bankruptcies up 38%. The average meal used to cost $8.29. Now it's $12.75. That's a 54% jump. And remember the iconic 4 for $4 deal? The one that made Wendy's the hero of broke America? It's gone, replaced by the Biggie Bag at $6.99. Or more, depending on where you live. What was once value is now just another overpriced meal. Franchise owners are panicking. Labor costs up 21%, beef up 35%, electricity up 30%, profit margins in the single digits. Over 60 franchises have completely stopped investing in new equipment or renovations. They're in survival mode, and the corporate debt? Projected to hit $9 billion by end of year. But here's where it gets cultural. Younger consumers don't care about Wendy's anymore. They're not impressed by the snarky Twitter account. They're not loyal to square patties. They want cheap food, and Wendy's isn't delivering. Meanwhile, longtime customers are furious. They've watched prices skyrocket while their wages stayed flat. And then Wendy's made the biggest mistake. They tried dynamic pricing. Yeah, surge pricing, like Uber. Different prices based on time of day and neighborhood, basically an algorithm for inequality. The backlash was instant and brutal. Because nothing says we care about our customers like charging them more when they're desperate and hungry. Wendy's decline is about more than burgers. It's about trust. The chain that promised quality as our recipe became a case study in corporate greed. And in an economy where people's wallets are empty, loyalty disappears fast. Fresh, never frozen doesn't matter when you can't afford to eat. And now we've reached the big one, McDonald's. The Golden Arches, the most recognizable symbol in the entire world. If you grew up in America, McDonald's was more than a restaurant. It was a cultural institution. Birthday parties, road trips, happy meals, the play place. McDonald's wasn't just food, it was childhood itself. And in 2026, it's dying. Same-store sales dropped 6% in Q1 of 2025, another 2.9% in Q2 of 2025. This is the worst domestic performance since the 2008 recession. 800 locations expected to close by year-end, mostly in low-income and rural areas where sales have collapsed by 15%. A Big Mac meal used to cost $6.39 in 2019. Guess what it costs now? $13.59. That's a 113% increase in 6 years. You could almost buy 2 Big Mac meals back then for what one costs now. And the dollar menu, the thing that made McDonald's accessible to everyone, gone. Few items cost less than $3 now. McDonald's was built on a promise. No matter who you are, no matter how much money you have, you can afford to eat here. That promise is dead. Foot traffic down 14%. The brand's reputation for value is in ruins. For decades, McDonald's was every man's meal. Now, every man can't afford it. Middle-income families are skipping it entirely. Gen Z calls it overpriced and low quality. Franchise owners are getting destroyed. Ground beef up 32%, packaging up 27%. Crew wages over $17 an hour in key states. Profit margins cut in half, from 18% to 10%. Inside corporate, there's panic. They tried launching value meals to bring people back, failed. They invested in automation and digital drive-thrus to cut labor costs, backfired. Service got worse, kiosks keep breaking. #McBroken has been trending nationwide. McDonald's was never just about the food, it was about memory. It was the happy meal your mom bought you when she was too tired to cook. It was stopping on the road trip and getting chicken nuggets with your siblings. It was that first job, that hangout spot. That place that was always there. And now, that glow is gone. When you drive past those golden arches now, they don't represent joy. They represent disappointment. They represent an America that's breaking its promises. The decline of McDonald's is the decline of the middle class itself. Because if you can't afford a Big Mac anymore, what can you afford? The empire that fed the world is now feeding on itself, and that's the most terrifying part of this whole story. So there you have it, 10 giants falling, Thousands of locations closing, tens of thousands of jobs gone. But this isn't really about restaurants, is it? This is about US. This is about an America where the basics, food, shelter, healthcare, are becoming luxuries. This is about wages that haven't kept up, about rent that's crushing families, about debt that never ends. This is about a middle class that's disappearing. And fast food? It was the last affordable option. It was the safety net under the safety net. When you were broke, you could still get a meal. When times were tough, you could still treat your kids. Not anymore. Now even the dollar menu is gone. If this is happening to fast food, the cheapest, most accessible food in America, what happens next? What gets priced out next? How much further does this go before people can't afford anything? If you think conversations like this need to happen more often, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and see you in the next one.